Hello everyone. I wanted to jump in here today and share some of my favorite backyard birding accessories. These are things that I have used for years and years that I think are absolutely amazing, that stand the test of time, that hold up really well, that are easy to clean, and that most of all create a great foundation for wonderful bird photography. Let's dig in. The first thing I wanted to talk about is the type of feeders that are available and which ones work best for photography. The kind that I like to use, and the ones that I use the most commonly for both daily feeding and photography purposes, are the type of feeders that have a roof. And the reason I like these kinds, the fly-through feeder, is because the birds are able to have food that's protected from the weather. Rain is the kiss of death for seed. It just becomes mush and gross. So you want to have a roof for like your daily bird feeding. You also want to change the food out regularly, of course, but it's super important that it doesn't get snowed on or rained on and then get wrecked in 24 hours. So I like this, but the problem with photography is when you have a roofed feeder like this, the birds are going to be in shadow. They're not going to make the best pictures. So what I like to do is encourage birds to get to the top or the roof area of the feeder. And I like to camouflage the roof of the feeder by sticking peanut butter and then pressing mealworms or peanuts or shelled peanuts or whatever kind of bird I'm trying to attract, millet, into that so that they can pick it out and try to put that on the back side away from where I'm photographing. So a bird will light on the top peak of the roof and then they'll be reaching down to eat, and you can catch birds flying to land on the roof and leaving the roof, and of course any rain or snow is going to wash that away. So it's not going to get mucky. They usually eat it or it gets taken off by the weather relatively quickly. Or you can, if the weather is okay to use a hose, you can just power wash it off. But that is one of my favorite daily ways to feed the birds. It's important that you have a tray that's in the bottom that can pop out, that you can power wash, clean, quick spritz with some diluted bleach water, rinse it off and put it back in to keep diseases and mold and bugs and all kinds of things from happening. But the majority of the time I actually feed birds is in the winter. Summer, there's an abundance. There's food everywhere. In the winter, I like to have a protected place where the birds can feed. And if I can have a place where predators from above can't necessarily see the activity that's going on, all the better. So I usually try to put it in a place in my garden where the view is obstructed to the bird feeder. But I'll get to my favorite way of attracting birds that's a little bit less likely to bring in predators. I'll get to that in a second, but that's my favorite kind. My other favorite thing that I love, and I'm going to talk about this briefly, is this base. I love this base. I have several of these, and what I can do is purchase a 4x4 post and have it cut to whatever length I want. It can be 6 feet, it can be 10 feet, it can be 3 feet, whatever you need for your particular situation. You screw it into the base, and this creates a nice heavy platform to have the feeder. A lot of times feeders are hanging from a tree, which is fine, but that's an easy access point for squirrels. I don't necessarily want squirrels stealing all the food. I feed the squirrels separately and try to feed them in the same area so that they're less inclined to want the bird food, but they are definitely opportunistic. So putting it on a post in the middle of an open area is really a good way of going about it. And they last forever. They're super heavy, so I kind of tip the post toward me and roll it wherever I want it to go. You can move it around as needed. So if you have a beautiful bush in bloom, like your black lace elderberry is going crazy with blooms, you can roll it over there in front of it and have some birds come and eat and get a nice photographs in front of that. So this is just a total all-around game changer when it comes to bird photography. I absolutely love it and highly recommend it to everybody. An accessory that you can get with that is a baffle, and this you just place on the top of the post underneath the feeder that's mounted on the top, and it prevents the squirrels from climbing up the post. Now, if you stick it next to a tree or a fence, the squirrels are going to just jump and land on your feeder, but if it's kind of out in the open, this prevents them from stealing everything from below. You'll want to mount it below where you're photographing, of course, but usually that's not a problem. Very, very handy. The other type of feeder that I absolutely love and that I use a lot, and I have a couple varieties here, but this is the one that I really love, and it is a recycled like plastic. I think I don't know what kind of plastic's recycled, but it looks like wood, and it has a hole in the middle square that you can put your 4x4 post through and mount it to that with some flashing. And this is great. It's an open feeder. It again has the perforated metal mesh bottom, and they pop out super easily so that you can feed you can feed the birds, yes, but you can also power wash it, bleach it, clean it, keep it nice and neat. And so that's awesome. But what I also like to do is, again, go to Hobby Lobby, go to Michael's, or just grab some leaves from around the yard and attach them to the side to kind of camouflage that edge. So the birds are going to come and go, and you can get them feeding on the feeder, or you can get them coming or leaving the feeder. This is a perfect feeder to capture birds in flight as they take off or land. Nice, beautiful place to do it. I have mine on a really tall pole. I have windows that are super high off the ground. They're like 14 feet off the ground. And so we have a one that's, I think, about 12-foot pole. And so it's just right at the base of the windows. And I can just shoot out through. We have special screens on our windows that are very easy to photograph through. A perfect way to photograph birds in the winter by poking my lens through the window. It's just really nice. And I also like to camouflage the edge, again, using some kind of natural adhesive. Usually, in my case, it's peanut butter. Remember, if you're using peanut butter as an adhesive for leaves, they're going to eat the peanut butter and it's going to make the leaves fall. But, you could also use something sticky like honey to attach leaves to the edge, and they probably won't eat the honey, and it'll just help the leaves stick to the side to give a little bit of camouflage to the man-made appearance of it. Because when you're photographing, you're going to be right on the edge of it, right? You're going to have them kind of sitting there, and you can with a little cloning, you can make it look pretty natural, like they're just kind of sitting in a leaf pile, eating things in the soil, like robins and whatnot. But anyway, it is just a great feeder, super sturdy. I've had mine for probably 5 or 6 years now. Still looks as great as the day I bought it. I could be a little better about getting it cleaned, but it's really good. The other thing that I think is awesome is this, and I wanted to mention that if you are somebody who wants to attract birds but not necessarily feed them, you can absolutely give them water. When you live in a harsh climate like I do, where it can get to -30, it's really, really, really important to provide water. There's nothing better you can give a bird than body temperature water when it's -30 degrees Fahrenheit outside. So I have this mounted on my porch deck railing. In the winter, I plug it in from the bottom. There's a plug-in at the bottom. It's extremely heavy, and it holds a lot of water. So I fill it up every day with a pitcher. When it starts to get any funky colored water or any mold or anything starting to grow in it, I'll bring it inside, give it a good scrub, spray it with diluted bleach, rinse it off, fill it up with water again, and put it back outside. It's just really heavy duty, and it works wonderfully. And they're so appreciative of water in the winter or in the autumn or in the early spring. And it also doesn't attract anything it doesn't attract insects, like food can. And it also isn't as predator interesting. The pattern of use of it isn't really, they can come at any time of the day. And mine is protected under a tree where predators can't really see if they're flying overhead, which is helpful. But I just love this bird feeder, and I would have 10 of them if they weren't so expensive. Anyway, I think that they're awesome, and I just have other things tossed in here as well. All of these products I have in my yard, I think are wonderful. This one is particularly for woodpeckers, because they have a place for their tail to kind of press against and helps them stabilize, as you see in this picture. And this one isn't as great for photography, I'll be honest. Any kind of suet feeder is usually just ugly, but if you just want to be nice to the birds, it's a great thing to add to your yard. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope that these product recommendations are helpful. Again, all of these things are things that I just love, that I use and that I enjoy, and that help make backyard bird photography easier. Don't forget the squirrels. You can always add special squirrel feeders too. And Thank you for joining me. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.